The girl was sitting by the window, waiting for the Duke's heir to arrive. Her name was Celine Mars, and this year she turned 10. Now she was training hard to become a knight protector in the future, just like her father, who was the king protector of the Duke of Willow. She couldn't wait for the arrival, and kept asking her mother if he would definitely arrive today. But she only convinced her that they should arrive very soon, so she should wait a little longer. She was supposed to be the protector of the next Duke of Willow, Mr. Demian, and the Duke of Willow was the one who ruled the northern lands. And if you looked at the way he gave orders seriously, it might even seem that he looked cooler than his father. And the heir to this duke would definitely have to be muscular, very strong, and no less serious. Celine could not wait for the duke's arrival, and when the carriage appeared, she was even a little scared. But then she ran in a hurry to meet him, and her mother only asked her to be careful and not to forget how to behave with the duke's heir. Everyone unanimously told her that the duke's heir was extraordinary, and so she expected that whoever would become her master must be as cool as her father's master. She thought that it would be like that, and what she saw was disappointing. Walking with her new master, the girl exhaled heavily, resigned to the situation, and her companion was smiling all the time, and she couldn't stand it, and asked what was the reason for such cheerfulness, to which the boy assured her that it was a wonderful situation. Her father told her that they don't choose who they serve, and she should serve this person diligently, regardless of what he's like. And maybe he is, but she was determined that as a knight, she should make up for what he lacked. Bowing politely, the heroine claimed that he was a little late, after which she introduced herself, assured him that she was very pleased to meet him, calling him the little sunshine of the House of Willow, as well as the heir to the Duke. No matter how many times she looked at him, she could not believe that this frail boy who smiled so strangely could really be the Duke's heir. She could still understand the cute face and the thin, weak body, but the problem was that strange smile. It gave her a disgusting feeling, like eating bread with too much butter on it. And the boy looked at the attendant and kept smiling, realizing that she was the kind of person who had it all written all over her face. In the end, the heroine asked him if he lived in the capital now, and after receiving confirmation, she asked him in all seriousness if someone was mocking him. The heir did not understand the question, and then she explained that he just kept smiling so strangely. And then the boy asked how he smiled, and in this case the young defender could only try to put something similar on his face. This made him start laughing heartily, and the heroine explained that in their neighborhood only weaklings smiled like that because they wanted to please absolutely everyone. And now she continued to insist on the truth, and therefore assured him that she would not tell anyone the truth, and therefore wanted to know if anyone was offending him. The heir decided that he would let her continue to make mistakes, so he asked her how she knew about it. And then the girl smugly asserted that one look would be enough for such connoisseurs as her to understand everything. And the boy, at that time, could hardly contain himself from giggling all over the street. In the end, she assured him that he should not be ashamed of it, because weakness is not a crime. And meanwhile, he had already stopped laughing, and even tears appeared in his eyes, and the heroine saw it and decided that he even cried because of it. It turned out that he was a very vulnerable person, and in the capital he must have been mocked at every step, insulted by his peers. Gossip did not stop. It was an insult that could not be forgotten. She suddenly started digging in her pocket, and in a moment handed him a handkerchief, and then asked him not to be so hard on himself, because it was not his fault that he was born weak, and if he tried hard, he could be half as good as the Duke. After a moment she changed her mind to 1/10, and after thinking even more, she was convinced that he could become 1/30th as much as the Duke, and the heir at that time, hiding his face in his handkerchief, did not stop laughing. The heroine happily declared that she would help him no matter what the situation was, and the aristocrat, after a fit of laughter, asked why she should help him, and the girl, with enthusiasm, explained that when she grew up she would become his knight protector. Her father said that it was the duty of a knight to help in a difficult situation. Realizing the whole situation, he thanked her and then asked how she planned to help him. But the heroine did not know the answer yet, so she said she would think about it, and he should just trust her and follow her. When she found out that he would be here for about a month, she was a little sad, because 1 month is very short, and meanwhile the sun began to set, and the girl assured him that she had to go. But he shouldn't be sad, because they would meet tomorrow. They didn't have much time to make him stronger. And so she smiled sincerely and assured him that in the future it would be a little difficult for him, but he should think of it as something unavoidable. After he said goodbye, he thought about her words for a while longer. Mockery. It was impossible that anyone would mock him, the heir to the Duke of Willow, the most powerful man in the central nobility. Speaking of Demian Willow, he was a brilliant boy who was recognized even by the capital's academy, never lost, even to the cunning nobility of the capital. One could safely say that he was a truly outstanding personality who was worthy of the title of heir to the Duke. She was the first one to be so obviously disappointed. The heir could have reprimanded her immediately so that she would never make a mistake again. But the boy couldn't even remember the last time he had had so much fun, and that meant he wouldn't be bored in this house. It seemed like it would be incredibly fun, so he could pretend a little longer. The very next day, the heroine yelled at him for going out dressed in something nice, and so she brought him a shirt, which seriously confused him. Last night, in a carriage heading to Willow Castle, Demian was talking to his father, and the man asked when the child intended to return to the capital, but the boy hadn't even thought about it yet, and so he said that the vacation had just begun and there was no hurry. And so his father, thinking it over, suggested that he go tomorrow to look at the horses. There were many that were worth looking at, but the boy refused, assuring him that he would have an appointment tomorrow, and they agreed to meet with his daughter Mars. In the Duke's mind, she was still a baby, and this puzzled him, to which Demian assured him that for such a sweet child, she had a very appropriate name. And with that, they agreed that they would go to see the horses later. The next day, when he came, the heroine was already waiting for him. But there was something wrong. She had a different hairstyle, which was usually done in villages, and also terrible, tasteless clothes. And this look made him wonder who it was in front of him, because yesterday he met a completely different person, and he came closer and was sincerely surprised that it was really the daughter of Mars. When he came closer, the boy immediately started talking about his new clothes, as he had been taught. But the heroine was only interested in the fact that he had come in new clothes, and so she left the puzzled heir alone, assuring him that he would be right back. She had guessed that something like this would happen, and so she had prepared something for such a case. When Demian returned with the shirt, he stood silently for a while, realizing the situation, and then asked if he had to change into it, to which the girl assured him that he had to, otherwise he would get dirty, and she had warned him that there would be a training session, so he should have prepared in advance. In this situation, sincerely surprised, the boy asked if it was really impossible to let the clothes get dirty, and the heroine immediately began to have a headache from such obvious things, and therefore assured him that it was impossible, because he would get his new clothes dirty, and then his mother would scold him, to which Demian, who had been wearing such clothes all along, restrained his laughter, wondering what could possibly make them scream because of dirty clothes. In the end, he agreed, and therefore claimed that he would quickly change his clothes and return. But it was not so simple, and he was not let go anywhere. He ordered to change behind the nearest tree, and she, in turn, would turn in the other direction. He went there already a little indignant that he had been suffering since the morning, even that he had changed into this. But there were not big problems with the fact that it was not so easy to take off these clothes, and when he returned, he proudly announced that he was ready, and when the girl returned, she asked how he looked in this. The heroine looked at the boy with puzzlement, but still kept her temper in check, and explained that he had put on the shirt wrong, and the ties should be on the front, so she allowed him to go change again. When Demian returned, he asked her what they were going to do next, and called her the daughter of Mars, which immediately disgusted her, and so she asked him not to call her that, and that it would be better to call her by her first name, and that she was called Celine, at which point he pretended to have just remembered that, and so he agreed. The young aristocrat did not expect this. It seems the child in front of him did not know that in high society, calling someone by their first name was allowed only in very close relationships, but it seems she did not even know about it. When she finished cooking, the heroine explained that today they would be catching rabbits, and she said it in a depressing tone to scare the boy. And when he asked if she meant the same ones, The girl confirmed that they were rabbits with long ears that jumped very high. The boy was surprised that she knew how to make traps, and she smugly boasted that she was actually known as a trap expert. Of course, it was a lie. It was very unsafe in the forest, and so she was not allowed to go there because she had never even hunted there, and they always scared her that a big scary bear lived there. But there was a saying, talented people go to the capital, and knights go to the north. Of course, this could not be compared to the capital's academy, but the Northern Knights School that Celine went to was a fairly well-known institution, and in this well-known school, she showed good abilities. In one word, she could be called elite, and therefore in theory she should have no problem making a rabbit trap. At least that's what everyone thought. And so, they went to the forest, where Demian immediately began to explore everything around him. It looked like it was still a virgin forest, and it looked quite unsafe for children, so he decided to be careful just in case. For some time, they walked confidently deeper into the forest, and the heroine began to feel her legs hurt. So when she saw a tree where, in theory, a trap could be set, she said that she could set a trap here and let him gather branches for now. Celine went to rest for a while the boy went on her task, but in a few minutes he returned with the branches, which surprised the heroine. But now there was another question: how to make a trap out of these branches. Seeing the uncertainty in the girl's eyes, Demian said that he had studied how to make traps at the academy, and hearing this, the girl was interested in how the traps in the capital differed from those in the north. A few skillful moves and they already had 2 good traps. So the heroine began to explain that rabbits usually appeared in places where they could hide, such as in the roots of trees, and so they could leave the traps right there. The boy was surprised by this. He may have been the Duke's heir, but she still tried to command him. She was already 10 years old, and it seems she hadn't been taught anything. But on the other hand, he didn't want to hurt her feelings, and he wasn't even angry at all. They walked further through the forest, looking for the next places for traps, and walked a little further. The girl was shocked by the beauty of the views that opened up in front of them, when suddenly Demian felt something, and therefore covered the heroine's mouth, asking her to be quiet. Right in front of them was a rabbit. Looking at each other, they came to an agreement and began to lay traps right here. But nothing worked, and the animal immediately noticed them and ran away. Celine decided to run after it and try to catch it with her hands, as it was still possible to catch up. But the boy caught it and said that it was better not to. He felt that something was wrong, and so turning around, he said that he had seen several rabbits on the way here, and it was close, and therefore they should go there. After that, they tried to catch rabbits, but failed and returned home, believing that they would succeed next time, and therefore they could not give up. The next morning at Willow Castle, the mother was surprised that Demian had gone to Marion today, because he said he wasn't interested. And so she didn't even know what was there, that he went there every day, that Baron Mars owned the place, and so presumably he could have met the owner. But no, the father said that his son was meeting his daughter there. She looked like her father with the same red hair, and she went to a night school, the North, which gave birth to a large number of outstanding warriors. Among them there were many who swore allegiance to the Willow family. But among all the knights, the status of the Knight Protector has always been special. In 10 years, that girl will become the Knight Protector Demiana. He grew up without brothers and sisters, and that is why she was so interesting to him. The Duke explained that her name was Celine, but in the village she was known as a troublemaker. She was very friendly, and there was no one there who didn't know her, and Mars was very helpful in running the place, at which point he pointed out that the Baron's mother was a commoner. In fact, he was not supposed to be the heir to the Mars family, because he had 3 brothers born in marriage. But no one could have known that a terrible disease would strike the whole North, and he became Baron Mars at the age of 9, and the next year he was sent to a night school. A friend with whom they grew up together suddenly inherited a noble title and began to own the village, and you can roughly understand what the atmosphere was like there. Of course, things went bad, and at the moment when he was thinking of giving up the title of Baron because he couldn't find a common language with the people of Marion, he had a child. This child played with everyone, not dividing them into nobles and commoners, but once there was a dispute, Celine hit a commoner's child so that she bled on her cheek and neck, and that night that child came to them to ask for forgiveness, along with her father. But that situation was resolved by Celine herself. They said that she ran to the door in her pajamas and started to justify him, saying that he hit her 4 times and she hit him 6 times, so she was also to blame. Then she knelt down with the child of a commoner and raised her hands. The girl said that if the child who was less guilty knelt down, then she should also raise her hands. After that, Marian's life started to improve. She became even more friendly with everyone and called them friends in public. And thus the problem that adults could not solve was easily and simply solved by this little girl. Meanwhile, the future night protector of the family, Willow, expected by her reputation, ordered everyone to stand still. And Demian, at this point, asked who were all the children who listened to the heroine like that. And she introduced 2 as Bella and Johann. They studied with her in the 2nd grade of the Northern Night School. And then Bella, in a rather surprised tone, asked if he was the Duke's son. And Celine responded by asking not to call him that, but rather the Duke's heir, and Demian himself, laughing a little nervously, assured that everything was fine and that he could be called whatever he liked. After that, the new acquaintance began to ask the young aristocrat with delight whether what he was wearing was fashionable in the capital or whether he had chosen it himself. After calming her friend down a bit, the heroine explained that Bella was the daughter of a local tailor, and she was also a very good painter. Suddenly, behind her, the other children sat down on the ground, claiming that their legs were already hurting, and as soon as she turned away for a second, Bella again started asking the boy about the color that was popular in the capital, about the fabrics. A moment later, Johann said that he had to go, explaining that they had received iron ore at the shop today, and his father had hurt his back a little, so his help was needed at the shop today. But Celine understood, because he had told her that the armory always needed help, and there were not enough hands. After that, Bella claimed that she had to go, that she was very busy, that she had to tell her mother everything she had heard from the Duke's heir, and with that, they both left. In this case, she could only introduce him to the other children, introducing the 2 children in front of them. She said that their family owned the best bakery in the village, and it surprised the heir that he needed to buy buns separately, because they were always on the table when he ate. When he was done with his introductions, she asked if he would return to the capital when his vacation was over, and when she received the confirmation, she was a little upset, as it would be nice if he came to Marian one more time. She called the children because she really wanted him to have many good memories, but things didn't go as she had planned, and the children kept coming, and when 2 of them said so, they explained that they had found a 4-leaf clover, and therefore they had to go and show off to their mother and father. After that day, only 1 child joined the children who were running around the streets of the village. Only the heir to the Duke, who looked like a little prince from fairy tales, was not very good at playing village games, and so there was even a secret word that the other children called Demian, and it was the word scone, a secret word that children used when they were upset with the aristocrats' playing skills. The kids would say that at that moment they would really like to eat scone, so they would signal each other, and of course the person they were talking about listening to this would think that they just really liked scone. Time passed, and the vacation was over. The day came when Demian had to go back to the academy. Already there, when he was going inside, he was approached by one of the students who claimed that he had not seen him at all during the holidays, and therefore it became very interesting where he spent all the time, to which Demian briefly said that he went to the north, and this surprised the other student, since the south and west were still normal. But he could not even imagine what you could do in the cold north. And when he saw the shiny stone that was hung around the neck of the Duke's heir, he was very surprised, and Demian, saying that it was a sapphire, responded by saying that it was ordinary glass, but the other man continued to say that it was a gem, thus outraging the student. At least, that's what she told him when she handed him the stone, claiming that she had seen one in her mother's jewelry box, and therefore it was definitely a sapphire, and therefore she wanted to give it to him as a parting gift. It was said that beautiful stones should be worn as necklaces, and so he tried to tie it to a leather rope, which seemed to be about to break, and so he should have given it to a jeweler to have it cut into gold, because he did not want the glass to fall and break. The boy noticed that Demian wasn't even listening to him, and at that moment he defiantly turned away, claiming that he was already late for class, and at the moment he only wanted to meet those children again as soon as possible. At the academy, the boy was outraged that Demian didn't want to go with him, and demanded an answer, because there was nothing to do in the capital during the holidays anyway, and he could have practiced with his sword in a country house. The heir claimed that his father would come, and he would not come on business. The Northern Night School had started the holidays. This statement shocked the boy, and he asked what it had to do with anything, but his interlocutor was already silent, and then simply said that they would see each other after the holidays. The friend insisted that he come to visit, and having been refused once again, he said that not only was the heir constantly busy, he was also busy. He was so busy here, but he still made time for Demian, but he did not appreciate it. Returning home, the young aristocrat saw a letter in his room, and opening it, it turned out to be from his father. It stated that he would be accompanied by Baron Mars and Celine, so he should tell his mother and prepare the rooms, and the boy himself wanted them to arrive as soon as possible. The girl was enthusiastically looking at the city's buildings in the carriage, and her father asked her to sit quietly, after which he asked the Duke why he decided to take Celine with him, because his father was worried that she would not create problems. But the gentleman reassured her that children are children to create problems. And besides, Demian was now in the capital, and they could spend time together. He thought it would be better if they became better friends now, because in the future they would often see each other. At this point, the Baron noticed that the Duke's heir might get tired of it, and the girl heard this and immediately asked why they thought Demian would get tired of her, as it was not true, and when people received favor, they would remember it, and he would be happy to see her. The father was outraged to hear this, and asked her to explain what kind of favor Demian had received from her the last time he came, and in response the girl said that last time she had entertained him with gusto. A little further on, she saw a huge clock tower, and it left a great impression on her, and then she noticed that perhaps this clock was created by God himself. And the Duke asked why she thought so, and the child explained that she had been taught this at the night school, saying that if you get lost in nature, you can find out the time using a stick, and so it turned out that this huge clock was created by God to tell the time. At that moment, she was told that it was the Tower of the Academy, and this surprised the girl even more. She wondered why they needed such a tall tower, and the aristocrat explained that people said that it was a magician who created this academy, made the tower so tall. 800 years ago, a great magician who helped the emperor when this country was just founded, said that after the war, he settled in the capital and created this academy. You can believe it or not, but they say that even dragons lived in those days. These myths fascinated the girl, and then she suggested that if she went to the academy, she might see something like a fireball, which was something she had read in books. But the Duke said that there was no such thing, and then she asked if there were ice arrows, which she had also read in books. But this time the man said that such magic did not exist, and this made her curiosity wane, and she began to get frustrated. She was told that the tower does not study such magic, but rather metal rocks to create better alloys, and that a new technology for making iron was recently discovered. And it turned out that instead of using a simple votive, a blessed one could be used to cool the iron, and the material became much stronger. But the heroine didn't seem to be very interested in this, and after a moment, exhaling heavily, she said that it seemed the wizard who created this tower was poor. If he had been rich, he would have chosen more land for the school, and she didn't understand why he created the academy in the capital, and if he had been, she would have created an academy in the north. There was a lot of land there, but because of the cold, it was not suitable for planting anything, and then it would have been ideal land for a school. After a little thought, the Duke said that her words made sense, and if she had been born in the founding era, that mage would have listened to her words. At that moment, the girl realized something. She began to understand why Demian was so sweet. Training was something that allowed you to train your mind in a place where you had no distractions, and it was obvious. He lived in a place where you couldn't focus on anything, and that's why he couldn't wield a sword. And that's why she needed to try and become more serious. She needed to try even harder. Her father always said that everything can be fixed with effort, and today, Celine was determined. They finally arrived, where the Duchess and Demian were waiting for them, and when she saw her husband, she immediately threw her arms around him, thus surprising the guests a bit. The girl came down and bowed politely to Demian, as was customary in the aristocracy, calling him the little sun willow. She knew that she had also grown up during this time, but while they had not seen each other, the heir had grown a lot. At this point, the Baron, holding his daughter, said that in this case it was time for them to leave. The girl was outraged by this and asked why their luggage was being carried towards the house, at which point the Duke assured her that since they had another child with them, it would be comfortable for them to stay with them, not separately. He would not be comfortable if he was away when needed, and therefore it would be better for everyone. Once inside, the heroine began to feel strange, and turning to Demian, she said that it was a little different from what the Duke had told her. He said that his estate in the capital was quite modest, and in response, the heir asked if it wasn't, and this shocked the girl. They called it modest, and even if all the residents of Marion moved in, there would still be empty rooms. The boy explained that Count Rader's estate was about twice as big as this one, to which the heroine asked how he knew this, and the heir said that Rassel Rader from this family was his friend from the academy. This shocked the girl even more. She was very surprised that he had a friend, and he noticed it. But the heroine, having calmed down a bit, assured that it was just not expected, and she had always been told that people in the capital were selfish, but still, it was a place where people lived. And now, she assured him that she also wanted to meet that friend. And suddenly Demian's tone turned cold, and he asked why she needed to do that. And Celine explained that he was his friend, and that she would ask him to continue being friends with him until she became his knight protector. And she thought it would be better if he always had someone around, and that he needed to appreciate his only friend. At this point, Demian asked her in puzzlement why she thought he had only one friend, and after realizing this fact, the girl was sincerely happy that he had other friends, and even 2 friends was already good, and even if one left, he would still have another. She saw how he couldn't find a 4-leaf clover, and it also seemed like he never played with friends, but he said he had 2 friends, which was great. And so she asked him the name of his second friend, because she was going to meet them both. After a moment, he briefly stated that he was not there, thus puzzling the heroine. There was no one he could call a friend, and if you think about it, Rassel was just his classmate with whom they went to the academy together. In this case, the girl began to ask nervously what she had been told, that he had many friends, and Demian was actually a very popular person, to which he apologized, knowing that Rassel would have come running if he had found out. Celine noticed that he must have been bored on vacation and without friends, so she began to reassure him that there was nothing wrong with that, and he could live without them. She just misspoke, but the guy corrected her, assured her that she was right, and he had no friends, so he was sitting at home alone. It was a lie. Demian Willow, trained in fencing more than 24 hours a day, took part in various competitions as the heir to the Duke, but now looking at her, he realized that it was actually very easy to understand her, and so he asked how many days she had come here for, but she did not know, and so she assumed that she would be here until her father finished his business. After a moment, he came closer and said that in Marion he had had so much fun for the first time, that he liked this life until he discovered one joy, and after he went north, he became sad. She felt uncomfortable from such closeness, and Demian suddenly lowered his head and explained that people from the same class as him create common memories, and the girl thought that he had started to cry, so she decided to calm him down, saying that she would play with him herself, and that tomorrow she would go to fencing lessons, and then come to play with him, so she shouldn't cry. In the evening, the Baron in his daughter's room asked if she still remembered what her mother had told her, and the girl confirmed it, explained that she had been told under no circumstances to cause any trouble to the Willow family, after which the man stroked her, assured her that she remembered everything well. She needed to behave as well. She was so grateful that they were settled in the main house, and if she kept her promise, he would make a good gift for her. At first, the heroine did not really understand what he meant by the gift, but in a moment she broke free from his arms and took the wooden sword, asking if they would continue their morning fencing training, and the father confirmed it, assuring that he should support his daughter in what she was working so hard on, thus making her even happier. The next morning they went to the dining room, The Baron did not even think that they would eat with Herzog. Of all the aristocrat's servants, he was the closest to him. But there was an impenetrable wall in the relationship between servant and master. No matter how close their relationship was, they could not live as a family. When she was done, the heroine asked her father how he knew the way to the training hall, and the man explained that he had accompanied the Duke there so many times that he had memorized the way himself, and in this case, she also really wanted to memorize it as quickly as possible. When she went out into the hall, she saw Demian with a wooden sword, and it shocked her. A moment later, her father appeared behind her, and seeing Demian friendly, he was frightened, and claimed that he did not know that the boy was training here at that time, and in that case, Demian interrupted him, and assured him that he had been waiting for them because he wanted them to watch his morning workout. The man could not believe his eyes, and wondered if this boy had always been such a cheerful child before. When they had met, he was quiet and thoughtful, but now, the man asked if the heir wanted him to appreciate his training, someone whose skills were so high that he was recognized even in the capital as a fencing genius. And so bowing, he apologized, as he could hardly teach him anything. The energy he felt was not like a 13-year-old boy, and so if he wanted to, the Baron would tell the Duke. At that moment, the heroine agreed, assuring him that a newcomer like him would not be able to learn anything from her father. The man was so ashamed of these words that he felt sick, and she assured him that just one look at the gym made everything clear. It was too clean, and obviously they didn't train here often. In fact, training in the gym was often held. It was just always kept clean and tidy. But the heroine did not know this, and therefore asked if he had just heard that she was training in the mornings, and therefore also came, to which he only quietly confirmed, after a moment of light laughter, assured that Celine was very smart. The heroine continued to assure that since her father was a great swordsman, it would be difficult to keep up with him, in which case Demian asked what to do, because he needed to train every day. And then the girl fell into deep thought while the aristocrat watched, surprised that she was very cute. In a moment, she had a brilliant idea, and pointing to her father, who was sweating with shame, she said that she would learn from him, and Demian, in turn, from her. The man was unsure what she was talking about, and the child explained that the boy also wanted to learn fencing. With trembling hands, he dragged the girl to the exit, assured her that Demian could study on his own, and they would leave so as not to interfere. But the heroine continued to explain that in the night school, they always said that if the weak decided to give up, he would remain weak. They said that a person who puts in a lot of effort can achieve greater results than someone who has excellent abilities, and the heir may be a beginner now, but he may be quite talented, so she will help him. The man was falling into deeper shock with each word. The greatest fencing genius in the history of the empire. She said he might be quite talented. This was beyond all limits. Celine came closer and asked him not to be sad because of what his father had said. He was just very strict about everything related to fencing, and in response, the boy could hardly contain his laughter again. And in a moment he turned to the Baron, asked to train with them in the morning, and assured him that he would try to catch up with them one day. A little later, the guy and the heroine started training, and she began to explain what would be the most important thing in the swing. And if you hold your hand at an angle, the force will be directed to the sword. And if you strike with this force, at this point she demonstrated how to do it. After the demonstration, Demian, pretending to be enthusiastic, said that it was a very cool sound, to which the heroine was not sure that if you do it exactly as she explained, it would be good, although in fact it was her first time that she did it so well. But nevertheless she assured him that if he also tried, he would do as well as she did, and therefore he should not give up. The Baron looked at it all from the side. He managed to understand that the heir was deliberately behaving like that in front of Celine, but for some reason the guy didn't point out what she was missing. But still, he looked quite happy. After a successful morning fencing training session, the Baron got ready to go about his business, and to be sure, he asked his daughter if he could definitely leave her alone, to which she was indignant that they still thought of her as a child and therefore should calm down. But the man understood that objectively she was still a child, and although he was not worried, he still could not take her with him to the service. So he asked her if she had forgotten what he was talking about, and the girl confirmed that she should not inconvenience the heir, but that he was not inconveniencing her, not her. But after a moment of calmness, she assured him that she understood that she could not say that. And that was the end of the preparations for the Duke's departure. And her father said that they would talk about it as soon as he returned. After the conversation, they went downstairs together, and the offended girl realized that it was the heir who was behaving in this way, not her. And she had 4 friends. This is Demian, lonely without friends. The Duke was already waiting for them downstairs, and he immediately turned to the heroine, saying that he had heard that they had trained well in the morning, and that he was sure that she would become a great swordsman. This praise meant a lot to the girl, but she realized that she could not smile so obviously with joy, and so she simply thanked him for his kind words, and they left. The Duke finally noticed from the Baron that, judging by the expression on Celine's face, she had been scolded again, to which the father assured him that he was worried about the fact that the child was being forgotten. There should be etiquette between master and servant, but Celine was always breaking it. But the Baron reminded him that he had already explained that it was not necessary to draw a line so early, because over time everything would fall into place. The girl, who remained in the manor, was suddenly called by the mistress of the manor, and turning around, she saw the Duchess, who claimed to be very happy to see her. And in a moment, the woman happily took the girl's hands, assuring her that she was very sorry that she had not been able to meet her earlier. The woman assured her that unfortunately she was busy today, but instead she offered to go out with her tomorrow to have fun, and Celine was visibly embarrassed to hear this. The Duchess said that she was very happy when she found out that the heroine was coming to them, because she had always wanted a daughter. But after she gave birth to her boring son, it so happened that she could not have any more children. At that moment, the son himself appeared, and the woman pointed to him and asked why he had such a bored reaction to this, at which point the maid assured him that he should hurry, and the woman left and asked him to think about where she would like to go. The shocked girl just looked silently in the Duchess's wake. Demian saw that she was blushing and asked what was wrong with her, and putting his hand on her forehead, asked what hurt. But the heroine immediately pulled away and then assured him that she had no fever and was healthy. Now looking at him, the guy's smile simply dazzled the heroine with its beauty. She did not understand why suddenly this smile became so similar to the beautiful smile of my lady, because she was definitely much stupider. Suddenly he asked what they would be doing today, and these words made her feel uncomfortable. So she assured him that she would be reading books all day, so he should also do his own thing, like homework, and she ran away. Left without a girl, the boy turned to the butler and asked where he could take such a child. And then suddenly memories hit the man's head. Not long ago, my lady had asked the same question, and if he answered in the same way, he would be endlessly pestered about it. So he asked for some time to think about it. Suddenly, shaking, the maid turned to the gentleman, saying that her sister was about the same age as her. The boy looked at her with a cold look and asked what he wanted, which made the maid even more frightened. And in a trembling voice, she said that a circus was visiting the outskirts of the capital, and there was a festival near the place where the circus tent was set up, and so maybe she would have liked it there. This option interested the young aristocrat, and so it was decided to try it. So he went to Celine's room and knocked on the door, but she was in no hurry to open it, but only said that she was very busy and had to study, so she should not be disturbed. Once inside, he asked if he was really bothering her that much, and the heroine confirmed this, to which the guy replied that he wanted to say something that would please her, saying that the circus had arrived not too far from here, and so they could go there. This news obviously interested the girl, but she still had to do her homework. But the heir continued to seduce the heroine, assuring her that the market near the circus had an atmosphere like a festival, but they couldn't go there because she had to study, because to become a cool knight, you have to do your homework. Celine, upset, confirmed that she still hadn't finished the assignment and therefore needed to study. Seeing this sadness, the guy decided that he had overdone it, and therefore it was time to correct the situation, and therefore he argued that probably the knight's school had very high standards. If she was so busy, in response, the heroine assured that it was not so difficult. She usually coped with such tasks very easily. It was just that this time the last task was very difficult. In this case, he offered his help. and after looking at her handwriting, he said that it was very beautiful. And a moment later he asked what was written there. She saw the number 128, but realized that in the previous equation she had written 728, which meant that she had simply made a mistake, and a moment later she happily declared that she was done. And the heir, in turn, turned around and left. Celine asked where he was going, to which the gentleman said he wanted to go see the circus, since he had already arrived in the city, and he would have to go alone. But if he had a friend, they could go together. Hearing this, the heroine quickly got down from the couch, saying that she had already finished her homework and had a little time left. And if he had no one to go to the circus with, she could go with him. And in this case, the boy offered to go with him, and the girl agreed without hesitation because she had to protect him. Arriving at the festival, the heroine happily looked around, and when she saw an aristocrat in disguise behind her, she was a little scared, and he explained that most of the people at the festival would be commoners, and therefore it would be better not to call him the heir to the duke in front of them. And the girl agreed with understanding. It seemed that here, too, commoners could not just talk to aristocrats. After they finished their preparations, they went to have fun, and Celine, seeing that they were selling balloons, decided to go buy some, and when she approached, the seller said that one balloon cost 50 silver coins, which shocked the heroine, and in a moment she suggested to Demian that they go elsewhere. The boy noticed that she wanted a balloon, but the heroine assured him with a sad face that everything was fine, and then Demian offered to buy her the balloon. But Celine assured him that her mother told her that money relations with people should be very careful, and that asking someone to buy something is inconvenient. The aristocrat assured that it did not cause any inconvenience to him, but the heroine continued to insist on her own, and then he noticed that he also caused inconvenience to her, the sapphire that she gave him. Perhaps it was a gift, but monetary relations with people need to be conducted carefully, and in return he did not give her anything because he received a precious stone, and it turned out that he caused great inconvenience to her. And then Celine realized that it was true. He was really the same as his mother's jewelry, and at that moment the boy took her hand, asked her to give him a chance to make amends to her. He listened to her, and because of that he felt very heavy at heart, and so he would really like to do something for her. Paying for this ball, the heir only decided to say not to give change, when Celine immediately started yelling at him, saying that such behavior would not be convenient for the uncle with the balls. You should not burden the person you saw for the first time, and therefore you should immediately take the change. After that, they continued to walk, but with a balloon, and Demian was still surprised at how special it was, when suddenly a piece of jewelry caught her attention, and the young aristocrat noticed it, and then he asked if she liked it, to which the heroine began to deny it, adding that perhaps Bella would have liked this color, she would have liked it here, and so would other children. The guy looked coldly at all this, and said that in that case they would also buy all of it, because sapphire is actually a very expensive stone, and there would not be enough money to pay for it, even if they bought everything at this festival. The girl froze, as if mesmerized by such actions, and in a moment Demian asked her to come over and help him. He didn't know what the other children would like, and if an expert like her helped, they would quickly cope with it. As he came closer, the beautiful jewel caught her attention, but she realized that she shouldn't take it, because she should have saved the money for the Duke's heir, and therefore should look for something that her friends would like. After finishing, everything was neatly wrapped in a bag, and then the seller put the same jewelry on the heroine's hand, saying that it was a gift for her, because she thought it would suit her very well. The girl immediately began to refuse, assuring her that she could not take it for nothing, but the woman assured her that everything was fine. She was making them for the first time, and did not even think that she would be able to sell them, so she was very happy that she bought it all, and after thanking her, they went on walking. Demian said that he could have bought this too if necessary, and in response, the heroine asked him not to buy anything else, because if they spent even more, it would be uncomfortable for him. A few minutes later, there was something else that caught Celine's attention, and she saw a big toy bear, asked to come closer and have a look, went to the counter. It became clear that this was a prize that could be won if you knocked down all the wooden targets. The girl noticed that they looked very heavy. Apparently, they put lead inside the wood, and that's why they didn't fall, and that meant that the uncle was throwing the wrong way. At this point, she began to think about how it could be done To knock down the heavy lead, she had to aim at the edges. It would be easier to move the target. But for some reason, everyone tried to hit the center, and that seems to be why nothing worked. Demian saw the interest and offered to try it, to which Celine sadly said that she could not do it, as she had no money. But the aristocrat assured her that he would try it once. When the aristocrat paid the amount for one attempt, the owner said that even the adults here could not cope with it, and it seems that he was a very brave boy, so he gave him another attempt in addition to this one. It was a game in which you had to flip 10 targets to get a prize, and now the boy was thinking about what Celine would like more. Maybe this big toy, or... At that moment he started throwing, and from the first throw, the target fell, and the heroine was watching and thinking about how he did it. The first time he turned his wrist, and the next time he turned his shoulder to the right, followed by the angle of his arm. After finishing, Demian said that it was not easy, and his final result was one hit. People around him started laughing at him for trying and failing, but it was okay, because he was still small. The heroine was angered by such comments, so she asked the heir to lend him 10 silver pieces, to which he readily agreed. Everything went exactly as he had planned. She was definitely hurt by the fact that they were laughing at him, and in the end she was given 12 attempts for the little girl, and if she turned over 10 targets, the bear would be hers. She was determined to win. The girl already knew that she shouldn't use force to turn the targets over, as adults used to do when Demian, who was about equal in strength to her when she threw for the first time, should just throw straight up. And with the first throw, she successfully hit the target, surprising all the adults who thought it was some kind of trick. But it turned out that they just threw it wrong. After the first target, the second and third fell at once, shocking the owner. It seemed that this child had guessed that the targets contained lead, and the heir was watching her all this time, and she was clearly doing better than he expected from the beginning. She was doing so well with these spears, even though they were made of rubber, and she was holding them for the first time. It was quite noisy, but nevertheless she was well focused, and she was perfectly copying the pose that she saw only for a moment. He thought she was just a little kid who tried to talk like an adult, but it seems his future Night Protector had much more potential than he had imagined. In the end, all 10 targets were knocked out, and all the people around were shocked by the child's abilities, after which she happily stretched out her hand, in which the reluctant owner put the bear, after which someone from the crowd asked if there were any other prizes, to which the older man assured that there were many more, and then began to take out another bear, which Celine was already looking at predatory, and her friends would definitely like that toy. Later, she had many cubs and was sitting on a bench complaining that she was thirsty when she heard a man ask her to come and get some juice. He said he had seen her hit the targets. She was very strong, and so he was willing to buy a glass of juice for her to drink with his friend. Demian agreed to let her go, and then she quickly ran off, and the heir remained waiting on the bench. He hoped she had fun today. He wanted to create good memories of the capital for her, just as she had given him good memories of the north, since he had no intention of living in the north when he grew up. She, as his Night Protector, would have to move here, and until then, he needed to create as many memories of the capital for her as possible. Suddenly, one of the servants appeared near him, and he asked if he should move his belongings, to which he received confirmation. Except for one bear, the servant assured him that since there were many things, it might not be convenient for him to ride in the carriage, and therefore he would take them to the manor and then return for him. In a moment, Celine appeared. The uncles asked her to tell them about the method of throwing spears, but she brought a delicious juice. They said it was made of banana and strawberries, so it must be delicious. And handing the glass to the boy, he immediately started drinking, shocking the girl. She apologized, claiming that she had actually already drunk her share on the way back. But the heir assured her that everything was fine, and the juice was really good, to which the heroine said she was giving it to him because her uncles had bought it for her. The heroine asked where all the things had suddenly disappeared, to which she was told that they had already been taken home. And now she wondered why there was only one bear left here, and the heir assured her that he would like to take it himself, as it was his thing, and he was told that such a toy would cost more than 4 gold pieces. A moment later he turned to the girl again, assured her that he was again inconveniencing her, for which he apologized. But Celine assured him that he should not worry about it, because it was only she who could not inconvenience him. In the future, she would still become his night protector, and then he would inconvenience her even more often than now, and therefore there was no point in worrying about it. In any case, they were unlikely to meet again until she was an adult, and Demian replied that it would be nice if she lived in the capital, but she lived far to the north. The girl looked at him and realized that he was happy that she had come and that he had someone to play with, because he had no friends at all. And maybe he wouldn't be so lonely if he had at least one good friend. That student from the academy seemed to be called Rassel Raider, and it would be nice to meet him. Returning to the carriage, Celine invited him to come to their house in the north when the next vacation begins. The other children would also be glad to see him. Then he asked if he did go there. Would she come to him in return? The heroine suggested that she would hardly be able to come herself, but if her father allowed her to go with him, she would do it with pleasure. Looking at her determination, Demian realized that she was only 10 years old and had the same amount of time left before coming of age. Celine was very attached to Marion, and keeping her against her will would only make things worse, so they should think carefully about what she would want to live in the capital. When they got back, it was already evening, and the children were discussing what they had seen today for some time, when they suddenly saw their parents gathered at the door, as if they were waiting for them. The Baron immediately accused Celine of promising him to behave well, but the girl did not understand even when she said this. She did not promise to behave like this. She was told not to inconvenience the heir to the Duke, but she was not told anything about her behavior. Suddenly, the Duchess started to look behind her, smiling strangely. She asked what Demian was holding, to which he said that Celine had won a prize, and the girl confirmed this, adding that she had given the boy the prize she had won, and then pointing to another pile of toys, she said that she had also won those bears by hitting the targets. The woman, looking at the toys, saw the same teddy bears, and a cunning plan appeared in her head. Looking at one of the toys, she said that it looked very cute, and then the girl offered to give it to her. She won, so she could just give it away. But then Demian himself intervened, saying that it was impossible. Celine deserved it, and it was impossible that she shouldn't have a bear. The heroine assured that everything was fine, but the heir insisted on his own. She generally thought that he was not decisive and weak, but in fact he was very stubborn. Here the Duke himself intervened, asking the girl if she knew that a knight defender must protect not only his master's body, but also his soul. The child confirmed this, and then the question followed. What would be best for her to do? What would be best for Demian? After a little thought, she reluctantly assured that she would keep the bear cub for herself. After that, the man summarized that she had 4 more toys left, and they were probably for her friends from the north, but only if she didn't have a bear, it would be pointless, because she won so that everyone would have bears. In fact, she really wanted to keep it, but she shouldn't have shown it. A knight should show generosity to a lady, but still, the girl really wanted to take it home and show it to her mother, but she was still a knight. These thoughts were interrupted by the Duchess herself, who assured us that she thought this toy would be more suitable for Celine, and that tomorrow she would go to buy a new toy, and it would be nice if the girl could help her choose. The girl gladly agreed, then asked if there were any shops in the capital that sold only toys. The woman confirmed this, adding that they could also eat desserts if they went together, when suddenly the words were heard that surprised the 2 girls. Demian assured them that he also wanted to go with them tomorrow, to choose a bear and eat desserts. At that moment he was very shy, but still realized that he could not send them alone. Every minute was valuable. The next morning, the heir asked heroine if she liked parfait, but she didn't even know what it was. So he explained that it was ice cream in a glass, decorated with fruit and cookies, and the boy realized that he was just repeating what Rassel had told him, and therefore hoped that he had said everything correctly. At that moment, the Duchess intervened, saying that the boy had not yet eaten this dessert himself, because he simply had no one to eat it with. She knew that her bored son did not have any close friends, and therefore, addressing the girl, she invited her to go eat parfait together, to which she readily agreed. After that, the heroine turned to the heir and firmly affirmed that she would go with him, so he should not feel lonely. And he looked at this behavior and realized that she was again in her strange delusions, but she looked happy, and therefore it was probably worth playing along. Entering the carriage, the boy stretched out his hand to help her, but the girl ignored it, saying that she was no longer a child and could climb in herself, which made her mother barely contain her laughter. And already inside, the woman said that she had heard that there was a place in the city where they served delicious parfait, and so they would go there. Walking around the city, the heroine noticed that everyone was looking at the Duchess strangely, and it didn't seem to bother her at all. It must have been hard to be famous. After a moment, the woman stroked the heroine, who said that it was not very healthy to eat cold in the morning, but if it was summer, then probably nothing bad would happen, and Celine confirmed this. Besides, she was from the north, and therefore she tolerated cold food perfectly. I went inside. The woman said that she had heard that they served a delicious parfait. The waitress confirmed it, although she did not understand how such a noble lady came here. Perhaps she came here to show the children what ordinary people eat, but in any case it would be too impudent of her to ask. The waitress confirmed that she would bring them 3 servings, and therefore asked them to tell her if they wanted anything else, when Demian suddenly stopped her and pointed to the dessert in the window and said he wanted it, and the waitress confirmed that she would bring scone as well. The Duchess noticed that this was quite unexpected. She did not know that her son liked this, but he refused, assuring her that Celine loved him, not him, and in the north she often talked about it with other children. The woman heard this and became eager, and so she said that she would order the cook to cook it tomorrow. After that, the woman asked the girl if anyone here knew that she was a duchess, Celine. She did not understand the question, and then she explained that she meant that she could not call her that all the time, because she would not call her friend's mother friend's mother. She would really like to have a daughter like her. At this point, the girl remembered her conversation with her father, who was teaching his daughter, and asked her if he was invited to play by Herzog's father, how he would answer, to which the girl suggested that she should agree. But it was not the right answer, and it surprised her. The man claimed that he could play with the Duke if he was his friend, but it was not so simple. He was a knight protector for him, and the gentleman was a lord for him, and therefore he should refuse in this case. A lord and a servant cannot be close friends, and now he explained that the heir would be engaged and married in a few years, and therefore he would have a friend as close to him as her mother was to her father, and therefore there was no risk that the servant could take over. And the girl replied that she had not even thought about it. After that, he asked how Celine would feel if he had a friend as close to him as her mother was to him, and if she felt bad, he should imagine how bad that person's mother would feel. And so, suddenly, his daughter interrupted him and asked if this meant that he had another girlfriend, to which he shockingly said that this was not true, and he was just giving an example to explain to her that she should just forget about it. He knew that it was not safe to get closer to the Duke's heir than necessary, because this attachment to Celine could be mistaken for love because she was of a different sex. Then people would point fingers at an innocent child, and the thought of his sweet daughter being hurt made everything inside him boil with anger. And so he said out loud, not intentionally, that it would be better if she were a boy. These words made her cry, and now that she remembered all this, she started to cry again. And the Duchess noticed this, and immediately began to worry and apologize if she said something wrong. But the girl explained that her father said that he would rather have a son. The woman immediately began to calm the child down, assuring her that she must have just misheard everything. The aristocrat knew that he could not have said that. Everyone knew that he was crazy about his daughter. But Celine, she argued, said that it was true, and he probably had a second girlfriend besides her mother. The Duchess spent most of her time in the capital, away from her husband, as she could not leave her son alone, and there were 3 words she hated more than anything else in the world: betrayal, disloyalty, and debauchery. In a minute, the woman was ready to go, and Demian asked her to eat with Celine, parfait, and she would not be gone for long. She needed to talk to one person. After they were served, the heroine kept crying. The heir tried to calm her down all the time, and try to convince her to eat with him, but she kept refusing, assuring him that he could eat alone. He felt uncomfortable with this sadness, so he made a statement that if she did not eat, then he would not eat, and so he asked her to open her mouth so that he could feed her himself, and she dared to try. Meanwhile, the Duchess was talking with her husband and Baron, and therefore she was interested in whether he would have any excuses for this, and not receiving a clear answer from him, she said that she would be here to ask questions, namely, she had heard that he had been cheating on his wife. Both men were shocked by this, and the Duke himself even stood up, after which he began to accuse his subordinate of not even thinking that he was such a person, that maybe people made mistakes. But at that moment, the Duchess looked at both of them with a formidable look and asked if they had just called it a mistake. This look frightened the Duke, and he immediately began to explain that in the North, it was probably considered a mistake, but in fact it should be punishable by death. The Baron, in turn, said that this was not fair, and he loved only his wife. But the woman had a different opinion, Celine. She was told that her father had another girlfriend besides her mother, and that he wished he had a son instead of a daughter. And how could he even say such a thing to his sweet daughter? Later, the Duchess and her husband returned to the children, asking if the dessert was good. The girl was surprised that her father was with them, and the man suddenly said that he had been told that she was very upset about what he had said, and he did not mean it at all, and therefore he would like to apologize for it, as he was wrong. He didn't really want her to be his son, but he said it because he was worried that her loyalty might be questioned, that people could easily make mistakes, and even mistake her devotion to the heir for love, and that might be true. That feeling might come from being together all the time. Celine was outraged by these words, and she argued that this was not befitting a knight, because she was the one who would become the knight protector, the heir to the Duke, and she could not feel any feelings for such a person except devotion. Otherwise, it would be a shame for a knight. Damien, not sure, said that even if she was right, they didn't have that kind of relationship, so she shouldn't worry about it. And she confirmed these words, assuring him that they were even ready to promise that if she suddenly fell in love with the heir, something terrible and terrible would happen to her. For the rest of the summer, Celine and Damien practiced fencing together every morning, and the Baron could not understand why the heir to the throne hid his skills from the girl and continued to train with them, and he came to the conclusion that just as the Duchess, who had only a son, loved Celine as her own daughter, so the boy saw her as the younger sister he never had, and he continued to think so. Time passed. The last day of the holidays arrived, and after the carriage loaded with gifts from the Duchess left the Duke's estate, the lively estate became habitually quiet. And now, Damien was reading the letter that Celine had given him before she left, saying that it was a secret and that he should read it after she left. And before the carriage, she turned around smiling and said that they would see each other next winter. The letter said that he would probably stop practicing when she left, and that's why she left the letter, even though Damien knew that would never happen, and he would practice more than she did. The letter went on to say that he had to practice the list she had written him. It was a method she and his mom used to use. After each training session, he had to draw an apple so they could check how well he did today, and if he filled in all the boxes before they met again, she would give him something nice. And finally, it said that he should remember to repeat 100 times before going to bed that he could do anything, because what he lacked so much was self-confidence.